Hey guys, welcome to another video, and this one's going to be dedicated to learning about what functions are really to solve functions. Functions are very complicated, so I'm just going to give you like a basic rundown of some of the problems that you'll see and some of the quick ways to solve them. Right? So let's get started with it. So these are the types of problems that you'll really start to see with functions. And what a function is it's really a graph on the coordinate plane. So you've seen this before, but this is the coordinate plane. And it's just, it can be defined, it's a graph on the coordinate plane that can be defined as f of x, g of x, any really variable of x. And you can just plug the x value in to figure out where that x value, what y value gets you on the graph, right? So I know that sounded really confusing and it's hard to explain, I'll admit, but let me show you what I mean with this. So when it says, these are some types of problems that you'll see. So this is example 1, and it's f of x equals x squared plus 5, and then you're supposed to find out f of 2, right? So a quick trick that you can always use with functions is whatever is in parentheses, that's what you're going to plug into the problem. So I know it says f of x up here, but really that 2 is x in this case. So you're trying to plug in x, and in this case it's 2, to this problem to get y, right? That's what I was kind of talking about when you plug in a value of x to get y, and that's going to be on your graph. That's kind of what I was talking about with that. Right, so let's start to solve this. So f of 2, that's the goal in this scenario, is to find that. So remember what I said, you're going to plug this value, whatever's in parentheses, into x right here. So then it would be 2 squared plus 5 equals f, and f equals 2, which is really the y value, right? So 2 squared equals 4, because it's 2 times 2, 2 times itself, and equals 9. Right? So you can do that, and that's one f of 2. So f of 2 is equal to 9, because it's when you plug in 2, or x in this case, into the graph that is defined by this function, and that equals 9 in this case. This is kind of the simple way that you'll see it in it. It's just really to see if you, 1, know what a function is, and 2, know how to kind of figure out what they mean by f of 2, or in other scenarios with any really, any random number, like it could be f of 4, it could be f of 6. It doesn't really matter. It's just, do they know, we're trying to test if you know whether to put what's in parentheses and plug it into the equation that they've defined or outlined for you in the problem. Right? So that's a simpler type of problem that you'll see with that. And here's a challenge problem that you'll see a lot of times. So let's get into it. It's g of x. Remember I said that it doesn't have to be f of x that defines the function. It can be f of x, g of x, p of x, any real variable that they want to use, right? So in this case, it's g of x equals a x squared plus 24, and a is a constant in this problem, and they give you that g of 4 equals 8, right? And what you're trying to find is, what is g of negative 4? And I know you're probably saying, like, what in the world is this other variable doing in this problem? Because that wasn't in the first one, and that's why this is a challenge problem. But in these scenarios, when you look at a problem, this really applies to any problem that they may give you. Remember, they're giving you enough information to figure out the problem. You just have to use that information to to benefit yourself, right? So in this problem, they give you that a is a constant and g of 4 equals 8. So let's go back up to what I was saying up here, right? The number in parentheses is plugged in to the equation that they give you to give you an output value, right? So in this case, if you were to look at this, you know when 4 is plugged in for x, this whole thing equals 8, right? So let's try to plug that in right now. So in this case, g of x equals 8. Right, so it's a, and then you know to plug in 4 for that x value, so 4 squared plus 24, right? So you see this and you say, okay, that's what I'll do. You know that everything here is plugged in, but now you can see that you can solve for a using backwards Pemdas. You can solve for that a value to figure out, okay, what am I doing with this? Like, I can actually solve what a is so that you don't have two variables in the problem, right? So let's try to do that. So we're going to use this backwards Pemdas way. I talked about it in another video, but here's a little breakdown of it. Remember, to cancel out an addition, you need a subtraction. So you subtract 24 from both sides, and that's going to give you, so 0 on this side, and negative 16 on that side. And then you're left with a or squared, right? And then what you want to do is probably simplify what 4 squared is. So let's make this 16 plus a, and then 4 squared in this case is actually 16, so it makes it a lot easier. So times 16, and then remember to get rid of a multiplication. So in this case, it's a times 16. You would use division. So you divide both sides by 16, and in this case, that'll get you a equals negative 1. Right, so you say, okay. So now you get to this point, and you're probably like, okay, yeah, we solved for a, but what do we do with that? Let me show you. So in this problem, we know that g of x equals a x squared plus 24. And whenever they say that a is a constant, it means a can only equal one value. And we've already solved for a. So really, we can just plug that into here, and we get the true equation, right? So let's make it, let's actually write it over here so we have more space. So g of x equals, so negative 1 times x squared plus 24. And that looks a lot better with what we've been doing before, because there's only one variable in the problem, and the question's asking you what is g of negative 4, and you know that whatever's in the parentheses you can plug in for x. So now it's really easy to solve, right? So let's start looking. So g negative 4 is negative 1. Alright. G of negative 4 equals negative 1. And then you're going to plug in this value for x, so it's going to be negative 4 squared plus 24, right? And then you get to solve using Pemdas. In this case, you have everything solved for. There are no variables to solve for anymore because you were able to plug in negative 4 for x. That's why we're using Pemdas, not backwards Pemdas in this case. All right, so let's start solving using Pemdas. Remember, Pemdas is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. All right, so in this case, we have no real parentheses in here, nothing to solve for. So then we move on to exponents. That's what we're going to do first. So let's simplify this. Equals negative 1. That should be negative 1. All right. And then you simplify with the next one. So negative 4 times negative 4, which is negative 4 squared. That would equal 16 plus 24. And then we're going to keep moving with Pemdas after that. So then we go, we've already solved for exponents, and now your next one is multiplication. And now we can simplify using multiplication. So we have negative 1 times 16, and a negative, remember a negative times a positive, equals a negative. So that's going to get us negative 16, and that's plus 24 equals g negative 4. And then you can just solve, so it's basically negative 16 plus 24, which if you were to solve that, it equals 8. So then you know that g negative 4 equals 8. Alright, so a quick rundown of what we did in this video. We looked at what functions are and really the types of problems that you'll see most often with them. So what you're going to do in this one is whatever's in parentheses, that's what you're going to plug in for x. In this case, it's 2. So you're going to plug in 2 for x in this value, and that means that f of 2 equals 9 if you were to actually solve it out, because it would be 2 squared plus 5, and that's 4 plus 5 equals 9. in this case. And then for the challenge problem, that's when you have an extra variable added in there, but don't worry, they will always give you something so that you can solve for one that constant, or they'll give it to you in a way that's easy enough to solve and they won't really have you simplify it all that much, right? So in this case, they wanted you to simplify it all the way and find out what g of -4 was. So first you solve for the constant using the conditions that they outlined for you here. And that's what we kind of did here, is solve for a, which in this case was -1, which you broke it down a lot. And then you use that and you plug a back in, so to make sure that you only have one variable left. So then in that variable is x. And it'll make it a lot easier for you to solve when they actually give you what is g of -4 in this case. Alright, so we solved for all of that, and we eventually got 8 for our answer. Let me know if you guys have any questions about this video. I know my explanation of functions was a little rough, but I hope this helped in terms of when you see a problem like it, you know how to solve it now. And yeah, just let me know. Thank you for watching.